What made you realize you're so wasn't the one?
Story 1. When she said that I was too selfish of a person, this is less a representation of who I am and more of who she is. She was a PhD student in special education, and her goal was to travel to war-torn countries and teach English to children with disabilities there. I designed medical devices in an air-conditioned office, so to her, I wasn't willing to personally sacrifice enough to help others. She's a wonderful person, but I realized that I could never live up to her standards of altruism. Story 2. When she insisted on having a fight, called her mom for support, and when her mom said it must have been something she did, she got pissed off and told me to go sleep in the park, on my birthday. Epilogue. I told her a week later I wanted to break up and she said no, I don't accept that. Story 3. My dad died in 2000 and a friend of mine brought over a tray of food to my family. We were friends, but not close enough to where we knew each other's phone numbers or addresses. It was a complete surprise to see her. She just heard about it and looked for something to do to help. Months later, I realized it was something my girlfriend would never do. I started dating the food tray girl about 15 months later and married her. Story 4. She didn't want the one, just a one, and like on a strict timeline, she broke up with me as soon as I signed a 1-year lease on an apartment because that would mean we wouldn't move in together for at least a year, and she has to be engaged by February of 2018 and that just won't work out. She needs to be married by September of next year, and I just messed up her timetable. She was 20 years old, and we had been dating for 3 months. Yeah, I had no idea about her plans, so good luck. Story 5. When she came home drunk after a night out with friends claiming I wasn't texting her enough, even though a review of our text thread showed I responded to every text in a timely manner. Not a big deal by itself, but it was a straw that broke the camel's back sort of situation. Story 6. When we met, we were both very not into having children. Back then, it was one of my vetting issues. I did not want to start any kind of relationship if the woman wanted kids, because there was NFW I was going to have kids. 2 months after we started dating, she gave me the following list of demands. 1. I was to quit my very nicely paying job to get a better, much higher paying job. 2. I was to buy her a house in Connecticut. We were living in the NYC area at the time, but not together, preferably Darien. 3. We were to get married immediately if not sooner. 4. And she wanted to get immediately pregnant with the first of 10, yes 10, children she wanted by me. The first time she told me this immediately post-coitus. I thought she was joking. No, the 50 times she said it after that made me realize that she was 100 serious. This was the mid-90s, and I ghosted so hard I moved from New York to AZ overnight without telling her. We're friends again now, as in FB friends, and she met and married another guy, no kids, though, and has been happy for the last 21 years. But talk about whiplash. Story 7. I asked my best friend how he could call his now wife his best friend. It blew me away that I, also best friend, could be valued on the same level as, and so, this lead our conversation to, dude, why isn't your best friend? And if not, what are you even doing? That was kinda mind-blowing for me. Thankfully my current has opened my eyes to what that feels like. Story 8. Happily married now, but with my ex it was one night we went out and she got drunk, then started cursing me out loudly in public for basically not drinking as much as she did, calling me among other things. When I tried to calm her down, she proceeded to hit me with an umbrella, so yeah. Story 9. Thought I was going to marry my girlfriend in high school, like most dumb high school kids think. Found out she let a group of 5 guys we went to school with run a train on her at a party. I somehow made it out of that one without an STD. Story 10. The realization was painful and gradual, mostly owing to his inability to have reasonable discussions, refusal to respect my perspective, and non-stop grudge-holding. But the last straw for me was when he broke one of my possessions, thankfully something small, cheap, in a fit of rage. I knew I couldn't spend the rest of my life with someone like that. Left soon after. Also, I was scared of him. Never felt that way about him so before. Story 11. We met online just before as we were both leaving long-term relationships. We had many similar interests. We both needed someone to lean on and were already predisposed to fast connections. It seemed great, ideal, a bunch of other positive adjectives and such. I suddenly needed to get away from where I was, and we talked about me moving halfway across the country. Then we mostly her. She's brilliant, made it happen. Problem was, we had no physical chemistry in person. We were a much better match as friends. Took a few months for that to really sink in. As it did, other things came up. She was smarter with a way better memory. She approached the world very differently from me, and gradually things became strained as all the little things added up. So we broke up. Both of us have avoidant personalities, so we also lost touch as friends very rapidly. I'm happier where I moved, and she's met someone who is a better match for her. For a brief while we were what the other needed, and I appreciate that. But I still miss my friend. Story 12. I was dumb enough to ignore the schizophrenia, paranoia, alcoholism, and refusal to take his medication. It was when he drunkenly flipped a car with us and his sister in it one night while drifting. It affected me badly, and one night he took off for a couple nights like usual and hit me with his car on the way out. I packed a bag for him and left it at his work, kept his cat because he almost killed it with a flea infestation. Story 13. Man, all you people with alcoholic exes need to send them over my way. I have the opposite problem and end up with homebuddies that think I drink too much. I do drink too much, no argument here. I just want somebody who understands that and will drink too much with me. Story 14. When he put his hands around my throat and threatened to stab me if I ever argue with him again. I endured years of emotional abuse and gaslighting. even catching him cheating, but apparently until it escalated into physical abuse. I thought this was normal behavior. I'd like to redo my early 20s again. Story 15 when she went back to pills and slept with her ex to pay for her addiction. Pretty obvious. 2 years down the tubes. Had planned to propose before I found out. Asked her parents and everything. Story 16 I one day randomly snapped out of my depression. Saw how shitty my life was with him. Broke off our engagement. Moved back to my grandmother's. Committed myself to a psych ward 2 weeks later. But there is much more of a backstory to that last part. But my ex is a man-child broke AF, and has no control over his life because his life is controlled by his mother. I had him over to play MTG last week, and he's like, you live in a shitty apartment. The only thing I could respond to him with that was I'd like to see what you can afford on what you make, and at least I still don't live with my mother. Story 17 being married now, I see what made all the other ones not work. I was too absorbed in having the same common interests, that will sustain you for a while. You learn to grow together and become comfortable with each other. You might even fall in love with each other, but then it hit this wall where one of us didn't want to move forward. With my now wife, everything felt right. I never had to question anything. I thought I might even have one of those do I really want to get marry this person moments, but it never came. I was absolutely certain she was the one for me. I feel the same way about having our first kid together due at the end of this year. There is stress, but no worrying. Story 18 when he pressured me into having with someone while he watched. He responded to my repeated protests with, if you don't do this then obviously you don't care about me. When I finally gave in to my complete discomfort he freaked out and accused me of cheating on him. A lot of emotional manipulation in that relationship. Thank God I immediately moved 3 states away. People can. Story 19 I'm married now but with my ex-boyfriend. I realized I couldn't stay with him because while I couldn't put my finger on why, I knew that I didn't want my family or friends to meet him. He had no real redeeming values and was emotionally and abusive. It was easy to stay with him because of how isolated I was, but when my mom said she wanted to come visit from out of state, I was afraid and didn't want her to come. Eventually I got out, and started dating my husband a few months after that. Could not be happier and my family loves him. Story 20 we were at a party, and he wanted to go home as we were leaving. A girl said that she hopes I feel better. I said not me my husband. He grabbed me and gave me a look that scared me. We went to the car and he freaked out. Turns out the lied about me being ill so that this girl would see what a selfish wife I am. He told me that I wasted his life being married to me. I was so done. I asked him to leave. He packed a bag that night. He had a long relationship with that girl, his boss wife. She played them against each other and left with both their cash. Now I'm happily remarried and he is still picking up pieces 6 years later. I don't want bad things for him, but after his second DUI, I don't have any sympathy left. He got what he deserved. Story 21 when she got so drunk I had to babysit her to make sure she wouldn't hurt herself, including pulling her back from leaning too far over our 3rd floor balcony railing, admonishing her for doing a somersault into our TV stand, or clenching her fists so tight her nails would make her palms bleed. Story 22 we were at a concert Steve Vai, not that it really matters and she wanted to leave before the encore. What the people do that, when he started making racist comments about my friends at their wedding. Story 23 when I asked for help so many times and he failed to pick up the ball. It's the little things you know. I've worked 8 hours and then had to go to uni. You haven't. Least you could do is make dinner or do a load of washing. Story 24 he slowly started making me doubt myself in very small ways. We all doubt ourselves sometimes, but when you start doubting even what outfit to put on in the morning because of some comments your so has made, time to move on. Story 25 my 2 exes from college 1. Absolutely nuts. Just to break down a minute. Couldn't break things off with her ex. Bounced between 2-3 guys. Just a spastic person in general. Still this way like 8 years later. 2. Didn't want to label us as dating. Took advantage of my willingness to take her out to nice places and such despite little money bragged about using me later on. Then when she talked about how she was to a friend in front of me as well and how she didn't need a boyfriend or anything all the while telling me she wanted to be my girlfriend and like dating, I was out. She's still the only person I absolutely hate. Story 26 she dumped me on my 21st birthday and proceeded to go wild at college over the next month. Blowing someone on the swim team, some random frat guy, and falling in love with a drug dealer who gave her synthetic, which led to her going to the hospital. We were together for about 13 of my life but her new college friends convinced her I wasn't worth it anymore and that she should be having fun with new guys. She quickly realized I was better than the one-night stand she went with, but by then, it was too late. She me up horribly ever since and I can't really let my walls down for anyone anymore. I definitely had a hard time even forgiving her. Story 27 the last nail in that coffin was when she threw a hissy fit like a 2-year-old because she was thirsty and had to walk a little ways to get something to drink. Never been quite that embarrassed before. Story 28 crippling paranoia was the reason many times. Now I find I feel rather numb, so I give it a week or a few dates and cut my losses. I believe I will eventually find someone special, and if I do not, it is okay. Story 29 the first one, we were in an online relationship and he visited for 2 weeks. When he finally went home, I didn't miss him and was glad he was gone. The second one, when she gave me that lame it's not you, it's me breakup line. And the third one boy oh boy, they went on this rant about the genocide of the human race and I pulled back so hard and ran for the hills. Story 30. We were married for about 4 years. I caught on that she must have been putting on an act while we were dating because it seems like the moment we got hitched, her true form came out. I had to constantly tell her how rude or inconsiderate to other people she was, started buying pills and using my health insurance to go to multiple doctors to get prescribed different. Then I started witness her shoplifting when we are out. The final straw, we went to my cousin's wedding which had an open bar. She kept getting drinks and just leaving them on tables still full, wasting drinks on purpose, and if I caught her in the act I'd go pick it up and down it. Just so nobody else would notice, I would confront her about it and she'd get mad and scream. It's no big deal. They're free. Well, to us yes, to my cousin no, and it's very disrespectful. Well, I ended up in the hospital later that night due to alcohol poisoning. A week later when I finally recovered I left her. Story 31. I still do not fully understand how, and honestly, everything was perfect, but then one day at work I saw my coworker in a different eye, not just physically, but I felt a genuine spiritual connection with her, and I do not believe in that stuff. At least I didn't until now. Even though I work with her and cannot pursue my feelings, I am thankful for her shedding light onto my current relationship and making me see it clearly. She will never know how she helped save me. That is the hardest part to have to accept. Story 32. When I had to constantly try to make plans with her, and she was texting other guys. The few nights we did spend together towards the end of the relationship, went from online ring shopping to breaking up with her in less than 6 months. We were together for 2 years. Story 33. Thought she was the one, but there was a bunch of things, cultural differences, an immigrant that is Muslim, me a 4th-gen American who has no beliefs. Her family did not like me, different mindsets and goals. She wanted to travel now, I wanted to play the long game, and I was a much different person then. Had some experiences that ended up making me a paranoid mess for a while when it comes to dating. Thankfully, we're still friends and still talk from time to time. I honestly wish we would have made it work because she is such a nice person. Story 34. After a while, you feel like you are doing all the work, begging to be paid attention to with nothing in return, excited when they actually text you or initiate anything. I feel sad and pathetic. Story 35. My ex made me feel like I was almost perfect for him. I was smart, but talked too much, so he criticized that. I was motivated, but I spent too much time at my research assistant job in undergrad, so he told me I was wasting my time. I was fun, but I smoked cigarettes and pot occasionally, so he broke up with me knowing he would get back together after I promised never to do those things again. I love my family, but my sister had previously struggled with drug abuse, so he refused to spend time with my family and openly manipulated me to stop paying attention to them. I felt like I checked boxes on his list of a perfect woman, but I was too loud, too rowdy, and had my own priorities that he never respected. We had started dating when we were in high school and kept it all through college. I really didn't like the feeling like there were so many bad parts about me. Story 36. When I realized that I was lonely as his girlfriend because he just didn't care, wasn't there. Best part of a relationship is to have that person who you open up to and have a mutual care for one another. You are there for each other and talk through things together, always putting the relationship first. Not in this relationship. Whenever I was hurt or upset, I felt like he couldn't care less. In fact, he would more likely distance himself from me when I needed him most. I was always lonely and disappointed, waiting and hoping for more love, openness and affection when it just didn't come. It was the hardest relationship to leave because we were so perfect for each other. I tried to give him everything, but it just wasn't reciprocated. I had to always remind myself why I needed to let go and find someone better. A few months after, I did. He is there for me, he loves me, he cares for me, and he doesn't walk away when things become tough. He steps up to the plate and works through them because the relationship and our commitment to each other is important to him. Gosh, I love that man. Story 37. Her drug use. I myself have never done drugs, just didn't want to. There was loads of opportunities, but I was totally cool with dating a girl who did because I had self-esteem and figured I couldn't do much better. Turns out I could do much better and am now happily married. Story 38. I was young, foolish and immature. We married because she gave me the attention I was seeking. You might say I married the first girl that looked my direction. After several years of marriage and a few kids, I believe I've matured just enough to not need a constant stroking of my ego. I'm sure I have other issues though. But I woke up one morning and realized that I'm with someone who I have absolutely nothing in common with, more or less doesn't like me as a person, can't hold an adult conversation with and doesn't make me laugh, and has gone off the deep edge of religion, so I'm an evildoer to boot. Got him lonely. Story 39. When after 4 years together he decided to permanently move to another country without consulting me. Sadly I held on for another year and then got cheated on when I moved for him. Story 40. Saw how much he hated himself, gradually came to accept the old truism that those who do not love themselves can't truly love another. This is so much truer than we like to believe, especially since so many people seem to hate themselves these days. It can be hard just to find someone with true self-love still. This constant always bears out in the end, and sure enough, that's the way it went for us too. It may feel like love at first, but once you get close enough, you and the relationship will be lumped right in with their self-loathing. Oh, for them the fantasy is fun for a little while, but should it ever become real, you will never be able to compensate for the original sin of loving a wretch such as themselves. I hope he finds someone who, for him, is worth the effort of personal growth and self-acceptance. No one can do it for you, and it is worth it to try for yourself, if only so as not to hurt the people who care for you the most. Story 41. When he pushed me off of the air mattress while camping, took all my blankets and kicked me in the face for trying to take a blanket back. When I told him in the morning to see if he remembered, he asked me, "Do you have any marks from me kicking you?" Which I did, and he told me that couldn't have been from him. I left him at the campground. Story 42. He couldn't stand to be around my family. That was a big problem. I am close to my family, met my now spouse, and we both at least get along with each other's family or are on the same page on them. Story 43. He was such a nice guy, always friendly and nothing really wrong with him, until a friend of mine pointed out something weird about him. He tried to work on himself but didn't succeed. It didn't work out. He just looked too much like a magician. Story 44. We just signed a 1-year apartment lease and moved in 3 weeks ago. We are now canceling the lease. Needless to say, most difficult time of my life. Story 45. Broke up like 3 weeks ago. Her mood swings were huge. Because of these mood swings we started to fight constantly about useless little things. The biggest problem is that it wasn't her fault actually. She had some self-issues. One of her parents died when she was young she needed to work on, so I had to move on. The hardest thing is that I actually still love her a lot, but I just couldn't deal with all her struggles anymore. Sorry for my bad grammar. Story 46. Well, I couldn't put my finger on what was missing for a year or so, but I love her family so much, her brother mostly, that I stayed. One day I realized what was missing. A penis. I'm gay and so is her brother, me husband. Story 47. When she spent Christmas in another state with family. When she cancelled our date to go to a bar with another man. When she had a seizure brain tumor and I saw she was texting another man and texted him, "Your girlfriend." And finally, when she chose drugs and alcohol over our marriage. Story 48. When after far too many occasions I came home from a full day of work to find her sitting outside smoking while our newborn son was inside crying, which she had failed to feed or care for all day. I even asked the neighbors and they said he would cry from when I left until when I returned non-stop. Turns out she wasn't quite the motherly type, and he's been with me ever since. She rarely sees him. I wouldn't even have a problem with her seeing him. She just never wants to. Story 49. When she read my private messages behind my back, suddenly all kinds of red flags appeared. Emotional abuse, jealousy, control issues, temper tantrums, and a ton of lies. Story 50. After 2 years of arguing over the frequency of I resented her to where I stopped giving a where she went or what she did, then realized that I didn't have the energy for it anymore and wanted to find someone more compatible. Turns out most women love. Glad I left. Story 51. Religion was always going to be a deal breaker, but really it was the fact that I was no longer willing to fight for the relationship. I was finally ready to let go and we both move on. Story 52. When I realized her depression was so all-encompassing, I'd never stop having to choose between her mental emotional well-being or mine. Sucks, because she's the best person I've ever known. I just want her to be well and happy, but I'm just so tired. Story 53. When I finally spoke to one of her other boyfriends that she had accumulated at the same time as our relationship, what can I say? She was a super hot, drug-addicted girl with serious daddy issues. Story 54. She made me wait an hour, double-parked in downtown Chicago, while she promised me that she was going to get her purse from her friend's house. She came down stoned and I don't think she was visiting a friend. I went off on her. She turned around and told me it was my fault and I was being selfish for yelling at her. Story 55. He told me it didn't matter if I passed my bio final or graduated from college at all because I'd just be raising our children anyway. This was 2 years in and he exhibited no signs of the crazy before then. Story 56. When they cheated on me while I was out of town taking care of my dying mother, he assumed I was lying about my mother's condition to go and meet with another guy. I found this out 2 weeks after my mother passed away. Story 57. When I read the awful things he said about me to his friends in group chat, he was actively trashing me, as we were snuggled on the couch and he was telling me how happy he was. Thank you, Apple Watches. I appreciate your lack of security on launch. You saved me a lot of time money. Story 58. Probably when I saw my ex respond to his sister needing help. We had already tucked in bed when his sister 18-ish comes home after partying. No big deal. Then all of a sudden we hear the door open and a guy at the door. At this point I'm a tad concerned, but my boyfriend just lays there, okay? Then at some point we hear her say, "No, you can't sleep in my bed, you're sleeping on the couch." At this point I'm wondering why my boyfriend hasn't checked on her. So I ask and he responds, "She's drunk." I'm afraid of angering her. For context, this girl doesn't have a drinking problem or anything. He just didn't want to step on her toes. At this point I tell him if he doesn't do something I will. He freaks out. Says no, I'm pissed. He didn't seem to understand I was pissed at him and not her, and so he says no, we'll take care of it. And he grabs his phone and leaves the apartment building, not the room, not the floor, the building, to call his mom, who lives in a different country. I just got fed up, asked her sister what was up. It turns out this guy was just too drunk and high to get fined one of the 30 Ubers he had requested. We shoved him in an Uber and he was on his way. I dated that guy for 4 years and loved him, but I couldn't have children with someone like him. I understand he doesn't want to hurt anyone, but sometimes hurting someone is worth it if it stops them from getting hurt worse by something else. Story 59. My ex-fiancé. He was very controlling. AMD actually caused my depression. He made a lot of comments about my weight, and cheated on me during the time he made me do sports to lose more weight. He also had a narcissistic personality which sadly is getting worse by each year. I broke it off and slowly gained some self-esteem and independence. We are still friends now, but I sometimes doubt if our friendship will last. Sadly, I owe him so much for some of the good things he did for me as I was starting out as an adult and feel guilty, or he will make you feel guilty for abandoning him. His personality as of late is evolving more as a DOM. He makes very stupid life decisions, and several times me and his friends has staged interventions for him. I don't know if he's just stupid or suffering from some sort of mental breakdown like his father did. Looking back, I dodge a huge bullet. Around the time I ended RL, he was 30k in debt. He would never stand up for me when his family berated me. And yes, the multiple cheatings. It was a toxic rel I was glad I'm over with. Story 60 late to the party. But looking back, it was probably when we'd get into bed together and she'd literally just roll over and try to fall asleep. We didn't live together. We were long distance-ish and saw each other every other weekend on average. We started going out when we were teenagers. And over the course of our 6-year relationship, we went from 15-year-olds holding hands on the couch, to sleeping over in separate rooms, to sleeping in the same bed. We were so happy when our parents let us sleep in the same bed. We would stay up for hours after we went to bed, just talking and kissing, cuddling. I used to look forward to that hour or two just lying in bed so much. But then she started just rolling over and going to sleep, after not seeing me for 2 weeks. Sometimes she wouldn't even give me a kiss when I got off the bus, not out of malice, but because the passion just wasn't there for her anymore. I was still as stupidly in love with her at 22 as I was when I was 16, she wasn't. Story 61 when she slept with someone 16 years older than her, but her uncles know him and they say he's actually 39 while we were dating. I've realized how easily her heart gets swayed and I don't want none of that. Story 62 1 a lot of times when we argued it would end up with him saying I wasn't satisfying him. Anything intimate that I did was never enough to him. I felt like he didn't appreciate what took me courage to send him. I was 17, he was my first. He was 19, been with a bunch of girls before me too, when he called me closed-minded for not thinking exactly how he does. 3 when I felt bad that my sister was depressed and cutting herself. Told him about it, and he said, "She'll get over it, it's no big deal," for when I started to get feelings for someone else. I would feel happier seeing my friend's name on my phone instead of my at the time. Oddly enough, after I broke up with, my feelings for my friend subsided. It can be the little signs that you might tell yourself, no, it'll be fine, this is normal behavior, I'm used to it. It wasn't until now that I'm dating someone else that I realize I was with the wrong person. One thing that sucks about my previous relationship is that now I feel insecure about, and if I'm enough for my new so, what I'm thankful for is that he reassures me it's okay and we'll get through it together. Story 63 not my current so, but my ex. I knew she wasn't the one pretty early on simply because everything I did or did not do always caused her to have a big existential crisis, and it just got really hard on my morale, real quick. But she was hot, exotic, and was insane, so I kept it going for 2 years. I just knew from month 3 that she wasn't the mother of my future kids. The breakup still sucked because I loved her regardless of how up and down the relationship was. Story 64 I was totally cool with her going vegetarian. Even when she went mostly vegan, no problem. Lots of new recipes and her meals made excellent side dishes. Raising vegan children though, 8 years down the drain, in no particular order. So one when he, at the last minute, insisted on driving an hour out of the way to pick up his mom so she could join us at my grandmother's funeral. We arrived late and missed it entirely. He had a codependency problem with his mother. So 2 when he told me that I didn't get to decide when we had. He thought that it wasn't a requirement for me to be in the mood and I should just sleep with him whenever he wanted. So 3 when, after a year of dating, he still needed to be reminded to get a haircut, brush his teeth, and wear clean clothes to our dates. So 4 when he told me about his swinger past. So 5 when he paid more attention to his video games than to me. Story 65 when he cheated on me with his sister. I was in denial that he wasn't the one for me. He actually ended up leaving me for another girl and getting her pregnant within a week. Hard time in my life. But now I realize, he definitely was not the one for me. Story 66 I actually knew from the beginning that we had an expiration date, but for some reason decided to go ahead. It lasted 7 months, and while those were good months, the I have to live in now caused by her shows me it's not worth it. Do not date drama queens ever. Story 67 which time we've been married 25 years. I can't count the times I've been fed up with her or she's been fed up with mine. But it passes. She's not the independently wealthy queen I'd always dreamed of. I'm not the buff cut, yet sensitive kung fu master she wanted. But she's mine and I'm hers. We make it work even when we're ready to just say it. Story 68 when I had some problems with his behavior and he refused to change or seek help. So I said to him, well, either we're going to reach common ground or just be friends. He chose to just be friends. Now I'm with the best man any girl could ever ask for. So it all worked out in the end. Story 69 I dated my ex for 2 years in high school and at the time I thought we were made for each other. We clicked on many levels, music interests, and much more I can't think of right now. However, the longer we dated the more I noticed certain things. She was very against me wanting to major in engineering in college, because she claimed engineering doesn't help people like medicine does, which is what she wanted to do in life. It's funny though, I'm now a pre-med student for other reasons. She was very adamant about us fighting when we had a disagreement, and being someone who dislikes conflict, I always refused to fight and just talk it out like mature people, but she was never interested in that and would ignore me for hours on end. She went and cheated on me twice, told me both times, and the second time said, and I quote, "You let me off the first time." So I did it again. She was very slutty, she said so herself, and before we dated and in between us dating on and off, she would go around and try something new with a guy. The last straw was when she would tell all our friends about the things she did while I was sitting beside her, the most embarrassing thing I've ever had to sit through. There were quite a few other things that she did, however. These were the big 4 things that stood out to me. TLDR: high school girlfriend of 2 years constantly put me down, constantly wanted to fight, cheated on me twice, and told her slutty stories to our friends. Story 70: he moved away. I went to go visit him, everything was okay, but when I got home he sent me a message about how, I will never see you again, we have no future together, and I'm killing myself at the end of the month. Then he ghosted me for like 3 months, came back, tried to fix things despite him being insanely jealous and paranoid that I was other men. Even though he told me he never wanted to see me again, he still thought he was my boyfriend that entire time. Stupid me took time off and spent hundreds of dollars to go visit him again, and when I got there he wouldn't take any pictures with me and told me not to kiss him. I accused him of being ashamed of being with me, then he went full rage mode and told me that I was sexting other people behind his back. What?